Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're covering the evolution of Spider-Man villains in animated and live-action films.
So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian?
I am the Spot.
The Amazing Spider-Man 1977. The first live-action villain to appear in film was Edward Byron. Edward Byron, who went by his original name, was a self-improvement seminar leader who used mind control on well-to-do patrons. He never had superpowers, but had access to a computer that sent out hypnotic sounds to anyone wearing a specific metal pin that he gave them during his therapeutic spiritual sessions. The auditory trigger told them to stop what they were doing and rob banks. Byron also threatened the city of New York by saying that he would make people kill themselves unless the city gave him a ransom of $50 million. He was defeated when the signal he sent Peter backfired and it brainwashed him to hand himself in.
Mr. Byron, you turned into one of your own zombies.
I think you need a little help.
Spider-Man 2002. Dr. Norman Osborn, better known as the Green Goblin, was a brilliant scientist and businessman who was known for his contributions to nanotechnology. Norman decided to expose himself to a formula his company was developing that was aimed at creating super soldiers for the military. The exposure gave him greater than human strength and was able to match Spider-Man, but it also caused his mind to create an alter ego, hence the name Green Goblin. The Green Goblin's personality was a psychopathic murderer, prompting Norman to be thirsty for blood and vengeance. At the hands of mercy, while asking for forgiveness from Spider-Man, the Goblin secretly directed his Goblin glider to impale Spider-Man from behind, but he sensed the attack and moved out of the way, and it pierced Norman, and he died.
Godspeed, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 2, 2004. Dr. Otto Octavius was a brilliant nuclear physicist and engineer who developed a deuterium-tritium fusion reactor that was meant to act as an infinite energy source for New York City and potentially the world. To sustain the machine's energy, Otto had created 4 tentacle arms that were connected to his spine through AI and a special inhibitor chip that was attached to his brain that helped him maintain control of the arms. A miscalculation caused the reactor to start sucking in everything and the chip was damaged. The mechanical arms fused to his spine and influenced his personality, and he donned the name Dr. Octopus. His tentacles allowed him to easily break and bend stronger metals. They also had spikes that came from the ends of the tentacles and were resistant to heat and magnetism. While under the tentacles' influence, Otto caused so much chaos and destruction across New York City. Once he took back control of his mind, he sacrificed himself by drowning and saved New York from further destruction.
I will not die a monster.
Spider-Man 3, 2007. This film featured 2 villains, namely Sandman and the Venom symbiote. Flint Marko was a petty thief desperate to obtain the funds for the treatment of his sick daughter. While running away from the police, he ran into the perimeter of a particle physics test facility in the marshlands and accidentally fell into an experimental particle accelerator. The scientists at the facility turned on the machine, unaware of Marko's presence, and it caused Flint to become bonded with sand. As the Sandman, Flint possessed the ability to convert his entire body into sand by mental command. Flint's body, being made of sand, made him vulnerable to water, but did not kill him. However, when exposed to intense heat, the sand in his body would begin to crystallize.
Jig's up, pal.
I don't want to hurt you. Leave now.
I guess you haven't heard. I'm the sheriff around these parts.
Eddie Brock was a new freelance photographer aiming for a staff position with the Daily Bugle. Eddie Brock was shallow, superficial, as well as vindictive. The Venom symbiote provided its host with increased physical capabilities, but made its host aggressive when bonded to it for the longest time. After detaching from Peter, the symbiote was able to provide Eddie Brock with the same abilities as Spider-Man. Venom recruited Sandman, who was on the run from Spider-Man, to help finish off the superhero. In the final battle, just as the symbiote began to rebond with Brock, a bomb exploded which killed both Brock and the symbiote. Sandman explained the guilt he felt for killing Spider-Man's uncle, and he was forgiven and dissolved into sand and floated away.
What are you doing? No!
The Amazing Spider-Man 2012. The Lizard, originally known by the name Curtis Connors, worked with Richard Parker to engineer a revolutionary regeneration serum to help regrow limbs and human tissue from cross-species genetics. In the hopes of preventing risking patients' lives, Connors tried the serum on himself, and it turned him into the monstrous Lizard. When he became the Lizard, Connors suffered from hallucinations that instigated him to inject himself with more serum, making the Lizard's personality stronger. He reached a point where he thought that to save mankind was to turn them all into mutant lizards just like him. The Lizard then set to work on unleashing the serum on New York City's populace by using a device capable of infecting entire cities. His plans were foiled, and an antidote cloud that was released in the sky reverted the Lizard to Kirk Connors, and he was arrested.
Poor Peter Parker. No mother. No father. No uncle. All alone.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 2014. Aleksei Sytsevich, also known as Rhino, was the leader of a group of criminals based in Brighton Beach, and he was formerly a member of the Russian mob. Aleksei was stopped by Spider-Man when he intended to steal an Oscorp truck delivering plutonium, and was also humiliated by having his pants pulled down, and he swore vengeance. Sometime later, Aleksei was approached in prison by the Gentleman and was broken out and given a Rhino-like suit to wreak havoc in the city. Spider-Man ended up defeating Rhino.
On behalf of the fine people of New York City and real rhinos everywhere, I ask you to put your mechanized paws in the air.
Never!
Max Dillon went through life ignored and overlooked. He also never stood up for himself, which led to him holding in a lot of anger. He got a job at Oscorp as an electrical engineer and designed the power grid for a new power plant. However, he got no credit for any of his work. While trying to fix a fault at work, he fell into a tank filled with electric eels. After being bitten and electrocuted by genetically modified electric eels, Max gained the ability to generate electricity in his body that he could release or harness, and he became known as Electro. His weakness was water, as it prevented Electro from using his powers, and he could not contain more energy than he could store. The arrival of Spider-Man and the police made Max think that Spider-Man had betrayed him. He was put out the fire hose, and he was taken to Ravencroft Institution for the criminally insane, where he was tested on behalf of Oscorp. In a final battle, Electro took out the city's power. Spider-Man arrived and they began to fight, taking out much of the power plant in the process. Ultimately, Spider-Man was able to defeat him by overcharging him and causing him to explode.
Not this time. Is that all you got? Come on!
20-year-old Harry returned home just before his dad passed away. Harry was now Oscorp's new CEO. After being framed by his company when he discovered what had happened to Max, he went to free him at the mental institution, and the two briefly joined forces. In an attempt to cure himself with the illness that killed his father, Harry injected himself with the venom of Oscorp's modified spiders for their self-healing ability, but this caused him to mutate violently, and he used an experimental Oscorp exoskeleton suit and glider to cure himself. Harry arrived shortly after Electro's defeat and realized that Spider-Man was Peter Parker. The two began fighting inside the nearby clock tower. However, Harry was knocked unconscious and taken to Ravencroft.
Peter, when you said Spider-Man said no, you meant you said no.
Spider-Man Homecoming 2017. Adrian Toomes used to run his own salvaging company. After the battle between the Avengers and the Chitauri in New York City, his company was tasked by the city council to salvage the remains of the Chitauri ships and technology scattered around the city. Before Toomes and his crew could finish the job, he lost the contract to Tony Stark, who created the Department of Damage Control. In response, he persuaded his colleagues not to surrender the Chitauri technology they collected, and they started a scavenging operation and ran a black market weapons ring. For easy operations, he created a flight suit equipped with turbine-powered wings, claw-like wingtips, and boot-mounted talons. He managed to get away by making sure he stayed under the radar of the Avengers and the government. Toomes threatened to kill Spider-Man unless Spider-Man stopped meddling with his operations. However, Spider-Man didn't stop and managed to foil Toomes' attempt to hijack a plane carrying much of the Avengers' weaponry and save Toomes' life when his suit malfunctioned just before he was found and arrested.
Time to go home, Pete. I'm trying to save you!
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2018. Wilson Fisk was the main antagonist of this film. He was the criminal mastermind dominating the New York underground, giving him the title of Kingpin. He joined forces with Olivia Octavius, who introduced him to her interdimensional research facility at Alchemax. Kingpin was to fund the project, and in turn his wife and son would be brought back to life. Although Kingpin's superior experience was overwhelming at first, Miles managed to defeat Kingpin and turn off his machine, and he was arrested.
I'll always have my family. You ever hear the shoulder touch?
What?
Dr. Olivia Octavius was the head scientist and CEO of Alchemax. She was also secretly Dr. Octopus and had been battling Spider-Man for years. With Kingpin's funding, she attempted to build an interdimensional portal device called the Collider and believed that it would make her a world-famous scientist due to her historical achievement. Olivia's suit design was inflatable, meaning she could wear the harness under her clothing and inflate the device when she needed to. In the final battle, she attempted to stop the Spider Gang from destroying the device, but was hit by a truck that flew out of a dimensional portal.
The
up, guys. This is gonna take a while. All right, never mind.
The Prowler, whose original identity was Aaron Davis, worked for the Kingpin, and he was assigned to protect the Collider from Spider-Man. When Spider-Man came to shut down the Collider to prevent it from potentially destroying Brooklyn, the Prowler battled him with the Green Goblin and left when the Collider exploded. His nephew, Miles, adored and looked up to him as an inspiration, much to his brother's disapproval. In his last moments, when the Prowler finally caught Spider-Man and prepared to finish him off, Spider-Man unmasked himself as Miles. Aaron refused to go through with killing Miles, and so the Kingpin shot Aaron.
Nowhere left to run. Miles?
Norman Osborn was a gigantic reptilian monster known as the Green Goblin, operating out of New York City and committing crimes with his incredible strength, flight, and fire breath. He became an enforcer of the Kingpin in his efforts with Alchemax to open up the multiverse with the particle Collider. The machine overloaded and caused a massive explosion which killed the Green Goblin when he was fighting Spider-Man. Spider-Man Far From Home, 2019. Mysterio, also known as Quentin Beck, was an engineer and specialist in the holographic illusions division of Stark Industries, but was fired due to his mental instability. Beck utilized a suit made from various components of Stark tech to levitate, fly, and shoot blasts of energy from his hands. Beck managed to deceive everyone into thinking that he was fighting for the common good when he was behind all the destruction. He commanded thousands of Stark tech holographic projectors to create illusions known as the Elementals, which caused terrors and chaos. Beck and his allies used several mechanical props to make the Elementals' attacks seem more lifelike, since the Elementals, being unreal, could not damage any physical objects themselves. In an attempt to kill Spider-Man, Beck was fatally injured by a stray bullet from a drone that was meant to hit Peter. He made an illusion of his dying body, handing back the Edith glasses to Spider-Man, but Spider-Man saw through the illusion and grasped Beck's arm. Peter took the glasses from him to order all the drones to disengage, and Beck collapsed and died.
Your lies are over, Beck.
This certainly isn't ideal, but I have contingencies.
Edith?
Spider-Man No Way Home 2021. This movie featured various villains from different universes who had come into Peter Parker's universe after a magic spell cast by Doctor Strange on Spider-Man's behalf that was intended to make everybody forget that he was Spider-Man went wrong. The villains were Green Goblin, Dr. Octopus, and Sandman from Tobey Maguire's universe, and Electro and Lizard from Andrew Garfield's universe. While discussing their battles with Spider-Man, Osborn, Octavius, and Electro realized that they were pulled from their universes just before their deaths. Peter felt that they should first cure the villains of the insanity that would lead to their deaths, to hopefully change their fates upon their return, which Doctor Strange refused to do. Peter left the Sanctum Sanctorum with the villains and took them to an apartment that had Stark Industries technology to cure the villains. During the trials, only Dr. Octopus was cured and freed from villainy before Spider-Man's spider sense went off and he realized that the Goblin persona had retaken control of Norman Osborn, who convinced the uncured villains to betray Peter, and they all took off. After developing new cures for the villains, the three Spider-Men lured them to the Statue of Liberty, using the box that was capable of sending them back to their realities as bait. Sandman and Lizard were first cured with the combined efforts of the group. They were unable to corner Electro because he had become too powerful for all three to contain until Dr. Octopus stepped in and helped them. The Goblin appeared shortly after and he unleashed the Contain spell, which broke apart the barriers between universes. Peter Parker Tom angrily tried to kill Green Goblin to avenge his Ohn's death, but he was calmed down by Peter Parker Tobey, reminding him that even Goblin deserved to live. Goblin was injected with the serum, freeing Osborn from the Goblin forever, and everyone was sent back to their universes.
What's happening?
They're starting to come through and I can't stop them.
There's gotta be something we could do. Can't you just cast the spell again? But the original way, before I screwed it
We're
up.
too late for that. They're here. They're here because of you.
What if everyone forgot who I was?
Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse 2023. Dr. Johnathon Ohnn was the main antagonist of this movie. He was a scientist at Alchemax who worked with Dr. Octavius on a particle super collider that was capable of opening portals throughout the multiverse. When a later test with the collider brought multiple variants of Spider-Man to Earth 1610, the stability of the multiverse was disrupted and the collider was made capable of creating a black hole. When the super collider was being destroyed by Miles, Johnathon was still inside and he was mutated into white skin with no facial features, and he was covered with small, swirling wormholes that could teleport items and people through, earning him the villain name, The Spot. He was at first incompetent and could only commit small crimes like stealing money from ATMs and considered himself as Spider-Man's greatest enemy, which Spider-Man Miles mocked him for. He eventually becomes a massive threat to the entire multiverse when he discovers the true potential of his new form while attempting to make himself Spider-Man's arch-enemy. In his search for more power, he reaches a world with a particle collider to suit his needs, and with it, he allows himself to merge with its energy. This increases his powers and further mutates him into a physically unstable, trans-dimensional being. Now fully prepared, the Spot declares he will take away everything from Spider-Man, and so he returns to Earth 1610 to destroy Brooklyn and kill Miles' father, as he'd seen in a vision of the future.
Excuse me. Hi. Sorry to bug you. I know you're busy. Sorry.
What do you want?
I know it's weird. I just came out of nowhere, but I think I'm becoming a trans-dimensional super being.
So?
I am literally splitting the fabric of space and time.
Thank you for watching this video. Please share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of our awesome uploads.